gentlemen, the first session of the roundtable is on navigating the new business reality. Now, let me first introduce our moderator. She has over 20 years of experience ranging from corporate to NGO and humanitarian work. She is a speaker, trainer, moderator, facilitator, and youth mentor with experience in engaging stakeholders from grassroots advocacy, and she participated in discussions on legislation and national action plans, both in Malaysia and abroad. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome you, our moderator for today, Ms. Nadiah Hanim Abdul Latif. Take it away, Nadiah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, MC. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And thank you for joining us for the World Islamic Economic Forum Roundtable 2021, Revitalising Reform, Catalysing Growth. Now, I'm Nadiah Abdul Latif, and today I am honored to be able to spend the next hour with you and our esteemed panel, Tan Sri Tony Fernandez, CEO of AirAsia Group, Mr. Abrar Anwar, Managing Director and CEO of Standard Chartered Malaysia, and Ms. Vibha Coburn, Group CEO of Manulife Holdings Berhad, this afternoon as we discuss navigating the new business realities. Can we have our panelists up? Hi, Tony. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
It looks like wherever you're at, it's cold.
Yeah, I'm in Korea.
Okay, that's far. Do we have Mr. Abrar and Ms. Vibha as well? Hi, Ms. Vibha. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Nadiah.
Good afternoon. Good
afternoon. Hi, everyone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we know that the pandemic has led to a dramatic loss of life and devastation for the world, the economy, and has caused social disruption on global proportions. For business leaders like yourselves, navigating uncharted waters have become I suppose it's to be expected, must do, right? And just as we thought that the worst was over and that 2022 might have offered fresh hopes, we're now, faced with news on the Omicron virus, volcano eruptions and earthquakes in Indonesia, extreme weather patterns in the US. In fact, just yesterday we were receiving news on that. And a quick check this morning on Relief Web humanitarian dashboard shows that the world actually is facing some 29 alerts and ongoing disasters right this very minute. And I think that was a big aha moment for me because most of this is long-standing and quite a number of them remain blind spots for most of us who are living halfway across the world. So if you're joining us from outside of Malaysia, as the good MC just said, please do give us a shout out. Let us know which country you're from. Let us know you're safe and well. And we're honored to have all of you here today. We aim to have a lively discussion, so please keep your questions coming. You can use the chat. Hello, Dr. Nur Hasbi from the UAE. There you go. So anyone else from the Middle East, do share. We will give a shout out. We also have other colleagues and friends from other parts of the world. All right, now today, as we hope to be discussing amongst others, priorities and strategies, as well as other operational policies that can be adopted by your businesses, not only to survive, but also grow in these challenging times. I think as per what was shared by MC earlier, if you have queries, please do put them on the box and we will try and cluster them accordingly. Now, I know that I was supposed to give a bit of a teaser about our esteemed speakers today, but I do believe that the illustrious panel that I have really deserves, they're already well known. A lot of people already know them. So no further introduction needed. A lot of them are very visible online, social media as well. So if you'd like to know a lot more about them, I'm sure you'd be able to get straight into that. Do check out not only their LinkedIn, but the many different articles that they have posted, as well as they have been accredited to. So let's start the session straight into it. I'd like to pose the first question to Tan Sri Tony. And let's start with you, Tan Sri. All right, so I'm seeing we have Omar Hajazin, CEO of Quest MEFZE from UAE. Hello, we seem to have quite a few friends and colleagues from the UAE. Please keep it coming. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, Tan Sri, we know that AirAsia has been a household name in Malaysia. It has gone through many rounds of challenges. Yet we know this Malaysia Boleh spirit is certainly something that it lives by. And you definitely, I think in a lot of places, people know you as the Richard Branson of Malaysia and a lot of the things that you do. Despite all that, you've always remained optimistic. And in December, AirAsia celebrated its 20th anniversary. And in fact, last month, Business Times Singapore and many others were actually already talking about analysts turning positive on Asia Group as well as its other country of operations. So could you share with us what has been your biggest lesson for 2021?
Wow. Well, thanks first of all for inviting me, and thanks for being such a bubbly MC. The biggest lesson, I think one of the biggest lessons actually is going to be a strange one. That when you're doing really well, everyone wants to be your friend and partner and supporter, and you give people lots and lots of business. And when things don't go so well, the 20 years of you being in business gets forgotten very fast. And all these supposed partners kind of disappear. So lesson going forward is choose your partners well in business, because partnership is not about just the good. Partnership is about when things get bad. And that, what we really realize is people who really believed in us stand by us and will benefit dramatically as we recover in this long run. But it's been a bit of a culture shock for me, to be honest, at how quickly, corporations can change their loyalty when things don't go well. AirAsia has been a great company. COVID is not our fault. And, when you suddenly go from 250 planes flying to none, there's not much you can do about it. But that COVID is not going to be there forever. And so we have now developed some amazing partnerships, and Abrar is one of them, to be fair. We look forward to coming out of this and building it. I'm not, I really do believe, if you allow me one more minute, because, you were a little bit doom and gloom. I don't think the Omicron, or whatever we call it, and I want to give free branding advice to the WHO in naming their viruses in future. It'd be nice if they produced one that we could all pronounce. So anyway, I think that this is the beginning of the end. It's very clear that it's not as virulent and dangerous. And as history has shown, most viruses tend to get more transmissible, but less dangerous. We've also got the fantastic news that the Pfizer pill, and that's not Viagra, is going to, it's 89% effective in preventing hospitalization and death. So that vaccines, being smart about how to deal with this virus, less potency of the virus, leads me to believe that 2022 is the beginning of the recovery. We're all feeling quite confident. And I have to applaud everyone who's still alive, number one, business-wise, because surviving this is not great. So everyone should be very positive that they've lived through probably one of the worst pandemics of human mankind, and that we should be pat ourselves on the back and look forward.
We basically survived something that was, I think the previous one was the 1930s, right? The Spanish flu. So it's definitely something, I think it was a big moment in the history of mankind to really just reflect on how far we've come. And at the same time, to your point, I like where you said partnership is also about when things go bad. So it's about in sickness and in health, right? Tony, when you were talking about it, definitely, when you choose who your partners are, it's not as simple as choosing someone when things are good for your business. Now, with that, I want to jump over to Ms. Vibha for a while, and I wanted to ask you, what was your major aha moments in 2021? Because you're no stranger to the banking industry, to the financial services, and yourself as a leader, perhaps the experience that you've had over the years that have become pivotal in your own leadership style in managing the company throughout the pandemic.
Hi, Nadiah, and hello to my fellow panel members. And thank you very much for having me here. Aha moment, oh, geez, there have been so many. But perhaps the most important one was, and I know it's very talked about, but this work from home and connectivity, keeping connectivity together. I think as professionals, great team, everyone knows their jobs. And then when we had to work from home, just getting that transition going and actually being able to work from home. And I think for the first 2 or 3 months, all of us enjoyed this boom of productivity because we knew we couldn't go anywhere else. We'd call each other at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. What were you doing anyway at that time in the night, right? So we did feel that we are able to, get a hold of each other. But as that morphed into fatigue, as it morphed into a sense of never ending, it's not 3 months, it's not this excitement of being, at home for a month or 2 months. We started facing quite a few challenges on connectivity. How do we remain connected? Every time we got on a call, if you don't raise your hand, you don't get to speak. You just talk about work and you finish. There's no banter. And just the fact that we had to be purposeful about creating that we had to actually think specifically, how do we, create even separate sessions where we said we wouldn't talk about work, even if it's a conversation on Teams, but also explored what people were going through. And it wasn't like a therapy session. It was more a question of, hey, have you picked up new hobbies, or where's your favorite holiday you've been to? What are you going to do when we get out of this? So that kind of sort of amazing sense of connectivity. I joined the business actually when everyone was remote, almost. So to actually meet people after 6 and 7 months, and the excitement and getting people back together. And we had a team building recently with full SOPs. Well, one person stood up and I said, what was best about the team building? All she said was laughing with my colleagues. And she joined us during the pandemic. So it was really, I suddenly realized work and task focusedness, all that works, and we can tick those boxes off. But does that really make us an effective organization for problem solving and connecting together? We found that when we came together, decisions were faster, they were more thought through, and they really had more buy-in from everybody. So yeah, it was a big, it was definitely an aha moment. And as we go towards the future of how we're going to work, with this hybrid and flexible kind of work sort of way, we need to make sure when people come to office, we do things differently. If we're all going to sit on a video call and we're still all in the office, we might as well as be at home. So we're trying to work through what does that mean to come in. So that connectivity and keeping that energy up during periods like this and supporting each other, I think was very important.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I joined my current organization in the midst of the pandemic, so I can definitely see where you're coming from. I think the initial great experience of the work from home global experiment or global social experiment started with all that aplomb and excitement over us being connected. And then after a while, it started growing into everybody just feeling either zoomed out, or it was too much of a good thing, and it didn't feel the same way it felt in the beginning. And of course, at the end of the day, many organizations are now going back to either hybrid in 2022, or of course, if you're in an industry like Tan Sri Tony, going hybrid is not necessarily all too good for the ones that have to fly the planes or help us on site. But I do understand that while we have had the opportunity actually to go work from home fully work from home, there have been a lot of other industries that have had to brace the pandemic and be the frontliners. The healthcare industry, of course, is one of them. Law enforcement services is another, and so many others who did not actually have that luxury, I suppose, in being in a safe bubble and doing the things that they needed to do because they were basically in the front line trying to keep everyone safe. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to also share a little bit of trivia, since we said that AirAsia turned 20 this year. So it's like a young adult. Manulife actually has been around in Malaysia since 1963. So I'm sure that's not something that everybody knows, but it first started at British American Insurance. And I think that was in Merlin Hotel. Do you remember Merlin Hotel, Tan Sri? It's like, that was quite a while back, right? Thank you so much for that. So over to Mr. Abrar. When we talk about priorities and we talk about strategies, because this is what we want to be talking about in this particular chat, what has been Standard Chartered Malaysia's, I suppose, what was your clarion call? What did you have to do differently, especially for your employees as well as your customers in the past year or so, which you probably didn't foresee as something that was going to be a done thing prior to the pandemic?
Okay, thank you. First of all, Greetings to everyone who is listening, and also to Tansri and Vibha, who are very well known to me. And thanks to you and WIEF for inviting me here. I think it's a great question, but before that, as everyone has discussed their institution's age, let me do that as well. I think we are the oldest bank in the country, 146 years. So 146 years of journey, starting in 1875, we have traveled through turbulence, the peaks and troughs of the economy, environment, and we have seen a lot. But probably this pandemic is something is absolutely beyond the human memory. I think the Black Swan event that really taken the world as a surprise, and we really didn't know what to do. As you have asked what we have done differently or what we have learned, I mean, if we just take away from there, dialing back March 2020, when this pandemic was announced and we were asked to work from home, maximum people, but bank being a essential service, we were supposed to operate with the full capacity in terms of services. Yet we had to put 80% people working from home. I mean, just to give you some numbers, we have got almost 8,000 people of Standard Chartered Group people in Malaysia in our two main entities. So as a CEO, I was really perplexed how to run a bank with 80% people working from home. I mean, of course, we don't have to fly the plane like AirAsia, but we have to serve our customers. So it was like really business continuity in real life. Because earlier we were just, do the Excel sheet, continuity plan. It will work when we hit that. So the first and foremost was we needed to ensure it's running, but remotely. Thankfully for us, we had almost 97% laptop penetration at that time. And we were investing in technology. And so we could switch to full remote working in 24 hours. So that means the digital enablement really helped us. And many of the customers who were not accessing digital banking capabilities were also forced to do that. So we had a lot of digital adoption. And as Vibha was mentioning, it's video call and so on and so forth became norm of the day. So we were actually finding a new opportunity as well, like engaging thousands of customers sitting here from in Kuala Lumpur, capturing the audience across the country. So there were some great takeaways that we, in fact, embedded now in our strategy, that how do we engage our clients, how do we engage our stakeholders, and how important is digital capabilities. So that is what we have done differently. And now it's like a level playing field. We don't have as many branches like our local banks, but now somebody sitting in maybe Perlis can open an account and transact without moving an inch. So going forward, our learnings from here is like accessing customers remotely, digitally, enabling them, empowering them is what will be the new way of working. Similarly, for our employees as well, is hybrid is the way forward. So that has also helped us to reduce our workspace and so on and so forth. So I think it's like both sides of the coin. There are some learnings, some heartaches, some issues that our customers faced. We needed to be with them. We needed to be by their side to support them. Otherwise, together we thrive. We cannot thrive alone. So I think there are many, many learnings from there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And it's true. I was talking to a business leader yesterday, and he quoted, what is love? No, what is grief? But love preserving, right? Persevering. And at the end of the day, sometimes you have to go through all these tough times. And when you're talking about accessing, enabling, and empowering, it means that you're going through this journey not just for your people and for your business survivability, but you're also talking about the ecosystem that you support and why you exist in the first place, or your raison d'etre, right? So Ms. Abrar was talking about digital adoption and leveling the playing field. So I'd be remiss if I don't ask Tan Sri Tony this question, and I know he's been asked about this quite a bit. You've shared that the pandemic has actually accelerated transformation that AirAsia was planning anyway, right? It was ongoing and it was already in the pipeline. And so in a way, the pandemic just helped you to catapult whatever plans that you had, fast forward a few months or fast forward a few years. Now, in July 2020, people on social media saw you jumping in your office after the deal that you had signed with Gojek. And this was, of course, between AirAsia Group Berhad and AAGB's digital ambitions to set and soar higher with its first cross-border acquisition to become the AirAsia super app, right? Could you share a little bit more about this and how you believe that developing the super app is going to be game-changing not only for business, but the industry as a whole?
Yeah, so you rightly said, and you've done great research. We started this just before COVID. We saw that one of the biggest assets the airline has actually, which many financial institutions fail to understand, is our data. And airline data is far, far more rich than, say, a data from a ride-hailing service or even a food delivery service, because one, the customer is spending a lot more, and so it's slightly higher on the wealth side, and two, it's KYC'd. You can make up your name if you do ride-hailing or if you buy food, but you can't on the airline. So that was our biggest asset, and AirAsia really has been a digital company for 20 years. People fail to realize that. But we were the first company to sell tickets on the internet when the internet had just been born, to be honest. And many people in Malaysia didn't have credit cards. We've created a very, very deep payment system that's far greater than any unicorn in Southeast Asia. And so that knowledge and that data enabled us to start looking at the next version, AirAsia 3.0, so to speak, on how we were going to take this company forward. Because, an airline's always going to have the ups and downs. In your opening spiel, you mentioned volcanoes. I've been through volcanoes, terrorism, you name it, I've had it. SARS, bird flu, national airlines, the works. So we're always going to have issues. While digital companies that can lose $2 billion US can be worth 40 billion US. So I thought, okay, something's not right here. So we started this journey of a digital transformation. And, it's much harder for a company like ours to get the attention because we're seen as an old-fashioned company. But we kind of set up 3 divisions, and we have one more, 4th division, the super app that you have talked about. Big Pay, which is our version of financial institution, and Teleport. Now, all 3 rest on the principle of leveling the playing field, allowing people to have access to these services. So logistics has been on the purview of corporations and bigger companies, but the internet, and especially COVID, has allowed someone from their house to start a business. But that business is generally only happens in their own town. They don't know how to sell their products outside. And so that's where AirAsia has come in with Teleport to level the logistics services so anyone can sell anywhere in the world and create a business from their home and make it a global business. And we've empowered many, many sellers now by doing that. So that's Teleport. And then we created Big Pay, which is about allowing everyone to be financially inclusive, just like we did with the airline. When we started the airline 20 years ago, only 6% of Malaysians flew. And I came up with a tagline, now everyone can fly. Now really everyone can fly, provided the borders are open. And finally, the super app that you mentioned. AirAsia was probably one of the most popular apps in Southeast Asia, but only selling AirAsia product. So I controversially said, let's sell everybody, because the internet is transparent. No one's going to come to AirAsia and just buy an AirAsia ticket. They would have searched before anyway. So we created 3 verticals: travel, and And then, anchoring on our logistics business, we created Delivers, which is our version of DHL, food delivery. And then controversially, we took on huge companies such as Grab in ride hailing. And we've had an amazing start. In 2 months, we've gone from 0 rides to 200,000 rides in a month. And we're number 1 in Langkawi already. And then finally, fintech. And it's all kind of, we wanted to create a more community-based super app as opposed to transactional. Many of the super apps are very transactional and don't really build community or a sense of belonging. So you'll see in super app much more content, much more interaction. We're building a messenger. We have a very strong rewards program as well. So, it's one hell of a challenge, but it's the same challenge I had 20 years ago when 4 guys from the music business said they were going to start an airline. Not very convincing. But hey, we showed a few people that we could do it. And in the same way, we certainly may not be as sexy as some of the tech unicorns. We're certainly older, but I think watch us in this space over the next 2 or 3 years, how we will develop new markets, level the playing field, and really do a sustainable business. I think many guys who are throwing capital into digital businesses, none of them have proven that they can make money. And, the time will come when they have to make money. And they're surviving. Anyone can build a business if you get $10 billion of capital to throw. So I think what we're trying to build is a sustainable business. And we've done it in the airlines, and we hope to do it in these digital business. And it's a very exciting time, not without its challenges, but, to move a massive ship of 24,000 staff to start doing banking apps and logistics is quite a challenge, but COVID helped. Because when you're stuck at home, as Vibha said, you're much more focused than when you're running around trying to move 90 million people every year.
Thanks for that. And I think it provided a lot of context, right? I definitely do not think that all businesses are any less sexy. Of course, in the new age of doing things, very often we see businesses pop up like mushrooms after the rain, right? They call it in Bahasa, but then we also see them die down really fast. So to your point of building enduring, lasting, sustainable business, it means that, you've got to have that business foresight beyond the immediate need of whatever your investment funding in the first round, and how you're going to build that tribe, as you rightly pointed out earlier. We will get back to that tribe building question, but I wanted to park that for a while and go to Ms. Vibha. And when we're going down this route of transformative business and the sustainability and longevity of the brand that you're trying to build, Manulife's mission is a big one, right? You've got an ambitious mission that says decisions made easier, lives made better. That's a lot of different things going there. And your values are also no less ambitious, because when you're talking about an obsession to your customers, you also interlace that with do the right thing, which I think is a very yin and yang combination of obsession to your customers and do the right thing. And then at the same time, you said, let's think big, but do it together. So there's a lot of balancing that Manulife's ethos tries to push forward. So in terms of commitment towards this obsession to your customers that you've mentioned, how have you responded to the needs of your customers amidst the various different restrictions that have happened in the last 2 years or so? We know that while Tan Sri Tony was talking about very soon the borders are going to open and we're going to all have that opportunity to everyone can fly again, we have seen that many other things have had a sharp decline. This, of course, I was talking to EPF in the last few months and talking about the sharp decline in savings of people in Malaysia. And then, of course, we have Bursa talking about a very mellow or a modest GDP growth for the country. What are your thoughts in terms of how Manulife is going to be committing to this obsession to its customers moving forward?
Yeah, no, thank you, Nadiah, for that. And yeah, we've got a couple more values. One is own it, and the other one is share humanity. So I think all of those had to come together when we were, when we were hit with the pandemic. And what made I'm an Abrar will smile, but I'm actually a banker, and I've come into insurance for the last 5 years. And what this period brought home to me in spades is how important our industry is, and this is the time when we actually had to put our money where our mouth is. So if we say decisions made easier, lives made better, this was our time to make lives better. And so when you looked at customer sentiment and the reactions which happened initially it was all about employment. It was about when I had to quarantine, if I get wages, depending on, I'm working daily, I lose wages. What do I do when there's medical expenses come up from this? Because COVID is a pandemic, and traditionally pandemics are not included in insurance. What do I do if I can't afford to keep my policies up? So I lapse, so I don't have my protection, which I wanted, or, my medical protection I wanted. And lastly, thirdly, a question about, if I do want protection, I don't want to go to a medical center and I don't want to, go and get my medical testing done. So if you think about the concern about COVID and the impact financially, secondly, in terms of affordability, can I keep up my payments? And thirdly, in terms of what do I do? I mean, I'm just picking three of them, right? So in terms of making sure lives are better, I think initially we launched a special financial assistance program, and they came in different forms. So, it was $1 million, and we put another $500,000 on it, ringgit Malaysian, and they were in different formats initially because people were concerned about, if I go into quarantine, if I'm not able to work, I lose income. So even when they were quarantining, we were giving some daily allowances to our customers. If they actually had to go into hospitals, covering some of their hospital costs. So all this was separate funds we set aside. The second one, which we went through, we also had compassionate benefits, for people if they had actually lost their lives through COVID. And it was quite a, as you can imagine, a time when we really needed to step up and be there for our customers. Then and both the programs have been redeemed, and we are actually now in some sort of semblance of stability. But then there were customers who actually said, look, it is very important for me to continue my protection. I'm not able to actually, keep it up, and I let it lapse. Now, that's, again, we went through premium deferment programs. We were looking at installment programs. And some of the consumers who needed the financing actually on policy loans. So, the temporary short-term policy loans. So trying to be a little bit more nimble on that, creative, but at the same time, making sure our consumers knew that there were options for them. And the last one, of course, is, we want hassle-free enrollment at present. People are looking for hassle-free. I mean, digitization, of course. I mean, I think Tanshi just said, the pace of digitization has never been as fast as it has been, during this period. But I'll park that aside and actually say, so how do we make it hassle-free for our consumers? So we started launching products which, did not need medicals. That might be smaller in terms of coverage, but at least there was some coverage there. You didn't have to go to a medical center. You didn't have to go to a hospital. You didn't have to go and get tests done. We also launched a few more health savings benefit kind of products, Manulife products, where our consumers were able to get discounts right up front. And then they were given, they're given benefits for remaining healthy and staying healthy and working towards that. So we're still thinking along those lines. We're thinking about how can we also have products where we ask customers to declare a few questions, and based on that, we don't have to fully underwrite. So we continue along that path of decisions being made easier on both sides and the lives being made better. I'm sure there's plenty more we can do. We will keep thinking about how we build this. And, like the pandemic has made us think we can do things fast. We can spin on a dime if we want to, and we can be effective and be there for our customers then. So that's some of the elements where I think, having customer right in front and being very customer-centric and obsessed by them has helped us.
I like that customer focus or that human-centered design idea when you were telling us about incentivizing good behavior. You also talked about bureaucracy versus breaking barriers to basically create things and help them to become more hassle-free. In that same grain of thought, I wanted to expand on that question, perhaps ask Mr. Abrar. Before we go to the questions, ladies and gentlemen, I see your questions coming. Thank you so much for them. We're going to go straight to them after this last question. I'm going to ask Mr. Abrar. Ms. Vibha also spoke about digitization and using that as a hook, right? And as a leverage to really do more and break barriers for the clientele. Now, for you in particular, we know that lives have catapulted online. There's a slew of options now for products, especially for digital banking, what have you. In the last few months, we've also had conversations on fintech and even crypto and growth forecasts in Malaysia. There's so many things. It's an exciting space, actually, and definitely one to look out for. So could you share perhaps your thoughts on the future of digitization in Malaysia, especially vis-a-vis the financial services industry, and what's Standard Chartered's foresight on this?
No, thank you. See, if you look at banking, everyone sees it's a very traditional business, and everyone gets excited to hear about fintech and new stuff. Fintech is financial technology. That's what we understand. In fact, we are also a fintech, but probably everyone thinks, the banks are like traditional and old-fashioned. But if you see the evolution of banks, we are all fintechs, and especially us with a full digital deployment. Why we say that? There are, as you know, new digital banks coming along, and also Tansri has been competing with us with Big Pay and many other things. I mean, of course, AirAsia has been a very, very agile organization, as I've been noticing for the last so many years. So how are we evolving in this space of tremendous competition coming from other players? So our strategy is very simple: to complement, because at the core, we want to serve our clients better. So if I give our perspective in Malaysia, we are an embedded bank. We do everything here. It's one of the top 10 markets of Standard Chartered. What do we mean by do everything here? We have small retail customer to large corporation. Everything that comes in between is our target market, and we serve them. So going forward, the servicing would be a combination of digital as well as physical. More and more, we see that our branches are becoming a center for meeting people rather than transaction. Because transaction, you can actually do everything from your mobile phone. Mobile application allows you to do everything, buy foreign exchange, make investments, and so on and so forth. So we are also trying to find our own niche where we thrive, where we will not have competition, rather what is our competitive advantage. The thought of supporting large corporations with M&A capability, project financing, high net worth individuals with wealth management solutions, advisory services, those will remain. But transaction banking will become fully digital, already has become digital. So when all these fintechs are coming, what are they doing? They're actually cherry picking. They're picking some of the smaller items of the banking that we used to do, like money transfer, remittances. But still, as they also try to expand more into the bank's horizon, they will be also constrained by regulations and many other things like KYC, anti-money laundering, all the other restrictions that the regulated entity we have to go through, that will increase the cost. So we will see that in those areas, the fintechs will probably not come. How are we engaging with fintechs? We are complementing, we are taking their service to connect and serve our clients. In fact, from Standard Chartered's point of view, we do have our own SC Ventures, where we operate 3 streams. One is our direct investment in fintech and co-creation of capabilities with our customers, accelerator program where new ideas are incubated and commercialized, and we also invest in new financial technology opportunities. So going forward, to summarize, going forward it would be a combination, but we cannot eliminate the need for technology, evolution, advancements, and integration with our services. Lastly, digital banks, you've heard that more digital banks are coming in. We are actually a digital bank ourselves already. It's like banking digitally or digitally banking. And then digital bank will be a totally separate entity itself. So that's where I see the future holding for us.
Thank you for that. And I like the fact that you've rounded it up with evolution, advancement, and integration. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our friends and colleagues here. I see people from the UAE. I see from Indonesia, as well as representatives from Sabah Sarawak. Thank you for joining us. Now, the questions that we have on the chat, thank you so much. I'm going to ask the first one. This is from Miss Amara Imani, and the question is for Mr. Tan Sri Tony Fernandez, actually. Okay, so the first question is for you. It says, do you have multi-level strategies for AirAsia in bracing for the organizational recovery? Some say that 2022 is still bleak, and some say that 2023 will be even better. How do you deal with this prediction?
Wow. Can't say I understand the question. Can you translate it?
Sure. I think what she's trying to ask you is, what are some of the strategies that AirAsia has in place to assist with organizational recovery, knowing that the forecast for the next year is not as great? There's more hope in 2023.
Okay. Thank you, Nadiah. Please come work in AirAsia. Can you? Firstly, it can't be much worse than 21, right? So, can it be as great as 2019? Obviously not, but it can't be as worse as 21. And so I think, we have, obviously we're going to put a lot of effort into the digital strategy that I talked about earlier. And, we're not really there to compete with Standard Chartered or anyone else. We're there to complement in the same way that AirAsia didn't really, despite what everyone thought, we didn't compete with Malaysian Airlines or Singapore Airlines. We went out there to create a new market of people that just weren't able to fly. And so, we're trying to look at the unbanked. We're trying to look at people who haven't really had a chance to get a loan because it's much tougher for banks to give loans right now. We're looking at different ways of using data to build a credit profile, as opposed to the traditional methodology of credit profiles and microloans. You're not going to go to Standard Chartered to borrow 500 ringgit, etc. So just as a small point, when I started AirAsia, I remortgaged my house with Standard Chartered 21 years ago, and that gave me the initial capital with Kamarudin to go and start AirAsia. So Standard Chartered holds a very dear heart to mine, and again, publicly, I shall say that, they were one of the few banks that kind of stood behind us and looked at us at the long term. And that is not easy for a bank with all their compliance. So, kudos to them. And I loved hearing what Vibha said, that they're a corporation that tried to help. It's amazing to hear an insurance company saying they were trying to give loans to help their customers pay for the premiums. I mean, that is real foresight. Initially when I heard the kind of company's core values, I kind of shut up and thought, yeah, that's just words. But really, they practice what they preach, which is commendable. So I think our strategy is two things. One is it gives me, I don't know if you play that game, Snakes and Ladders, where you go up to square 97 and there's a snake that takes you all the way back to 3. That's kind of where I am, but it's a wonderful opportunity to, as you build your business in 20 years, you grow fat physically and as a business. And here I've got a chance to redo everything again. It's a once in a lifetime chance to restart the airline in a leaner, meaner, smarter way and get rid of the fat. So, that's one strategy. We're probably going to be soon out of India and we close in Japan, but we're going to expand in ASEAN. And I'm very excited about ASEAN. And then we have our 4 digital businesses. So, while 2022 may not be as great a year as 2019, I think it's going to be a lot better. Are we prepared for every eventuality, which I think the question meant by saying multi-level strategies? Obviously, we're so battle hardened. We have loads of scenarios to play, from the very worst scenario where we can't fly at all to the great scenario where we're flying a lot more. But we've also now diversified our business. AirAsia Group is no more just an airline. And that's going to be our big challenge in 2022. Branding is something very close to my heart, but to get people to start thinking that we're much more than an airline is going to be a big challenge in 2022. And we may even rename our company. Talking about strategy, we may change AirAsia Group into, Abrar Inc. or Coburn Incorporated. And that Coburn Incorporated may own an airline. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. Vibha will be thrilled to own an airline, an engineering company, and 4 great digital companies. But everything we're doing in this strategy is about affecting people's lives. I always say business has to be in operation to make a difference. You have to have a reason for existing. And for us, it's always been about serving the underserved, leveling the playing field, bringing democracy and equal opportunities, both in the workplace, where we have championed female pilots, we have championed a meritocracy in a country where it's not exactly easy to do. We have championed allowing a dispatch boy to become a pilot. So in the same way we do it in the workplace, we champion the small man to be able to become a successful businessman through using our tools and, flights being one, but obviously all the other things I meant. And, we have a little venture firm where we want to educate people. We've been great educators. We have educated 24,000 people. People who never dreamt of becoming pilots, telephone dispatch guys that are now engineers. And so with our technical experience, we've created AirAsia Academy, run by Irene Oma, and she's doing an amazing job with Google. And we want to democratize education, to give people a chance to take advantage of this digital world, that they don't have to go to Oxford and Cambridge or, these great universities to be able to get a great job. So everything we're doing is about, democratization and serving the underserved. And that makes it exciting. Will 22 be great? Will I know exactly which strategy to take? You can't really plan for anything. Just when we think everything's going to be great, then we have a new variant, right? But, you adapt, you move, you be nimble. And I think you can't plan for every strategy, but you are nimble enough and you have an organization that can change and adapt. And that enables you to deal with whatever 2023 throws at you.
Thank you for that. And I think that gives a lot of food for thought, right? And not only in terms of the airline industry, but I think this resonates with all of the leaders who are on this panel thinking about, when we talk about multi-level challenges, when we're talking about business viability, there's a lot more to it than just sort of having those strategies in play, right? Okay, we've got 5 more minutes before we do have to wrap up. There are many questions that are here on the chat box. Thank you so much. And some of them, I believe, are actually answered by our panelists through their answers. I'm going to be taking this question from Mr. Yusuf Saeed, and his question is for any of the panel members. Focus on various stakeholders, including customer and clients, are important, as well as one's employees. So this question really is about how do you focus on your employees? And the question goes, COVID has shown that the decency quotient of a leader is key. How did you as a leader and your organization focus on employee wellness during this time and ensure that the transition of them towards functioning in the remote world work? So I know that Mr. Abrar mentioned earlier about 80% of his key personnel actually needed to work from home. So I'm going to ask this question to Ms. Vibha. Maybe could you share a little bit about Manulife's challenge and how have you maintained this employee wellness?
Thank you, Nadiah. And this is something, today is Wellness Wednesday for us, actually. So we have Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday, where we have a particular theme which we send out to all our teams and have webinars and almost literally give them permission to go through those webinars. But that aside, I think we didn't actually quite realize the impact this would have on people when the pandemic started, right? All of us, agree with that kind of sentiment. And suddenly we found that people weren't taking leave, people weren't getting breaks. Not only weren't they getting breaks, they were working longer and longer and longer hours because no commute, nothing, nowhere to go. I have people calling in and I said, I thought you were on holiday. They said, no, I'm on leave, I'm not on holiday. And I keep going, no, you're taking a break. They are one and the same. So this whole idea of giving people permission to actually take a break. So we had three sort of very different items, besides the normal sort of, engagement part, which I talked about before, which is allowing people to, get together, even virtually, but just, to have a cup of coffee and talk about, stuff other than work. We did give everyone in June of every year, and we did this globally and we did this here. We made sure that people just had a day off. It was a working day. Everybody, unless you were customer facing and you needed to be there for our customers, we just took the day off. There was no questions asked, and we just took one day off. So everybody got one day off, in June. We've done it for the last 2 years. We gave everyone 5 days extra leave for both years. We just said, look, take that extra days off, stay at home, do whatever you want, or if you can travel, and we can now in Malaysia. So people are using their personal days, we call them, to actually go away and meet their loved ones mainly, more than have a holiday as such. We also introduced Fuel Up Fridays, and we introduced that in September of this year, because we found that while we were talking about people investing in themselves, it wasn't happening. Because again, like I said, the work rhythm had changed so much. So we gave the morning for people to learn, and we had a couple of platforms we would use, we called it Pursuit and Pursuit of Learning. So for them to pursue that. And then they had the afternoon to recharge. So we were having the fuel up was to, your brain, and then also physically and your soul to sort of fuel that up. And so actually going out of the way and actually thinking, doesn't matter if it's 1 day out of 20 that people get a break, but let them actually enjoy doing this together, and being very, again, purposeful in deciding how to keep our team's energy up. I'm sure there are more things we can do. We got the Wellness Wednesdays. We celebrate every festival. That's what I love about Malaysia. We get to celebrate every festival, even if it's remotely, and we continue to actually keep that connectivity going with our people.
Thank you for that. And I think that's important, right? And when we're talking about how we're going to be managing this fatigue, someone was telling me it's an endurance, but at a sprinting pace. And it's not necessarily the same to say that you're on a marathon at a sprinting pace. What's that supposed to mean? So I've got a space for one last question. I'm sorry, Mr. Abrar, but you're going to have to hit the bat home in a really punchy manner. Now, the question, I'm going to combine two questions. One is actually from Ibrahim Patel, and the other is from Ms. Rahana Abdul Rahman. Thank you both for your question. So I'm combining both questions together. The question is, how can the financial institutions reach those that are in the rural communities where communication and technology as well as infrastructure are at best rudimentary or at worst unstable? How can we avoid further divide of the unbankable? And how might we also advise smaller businesses in approaching or surviving through this crisis?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be very brief. See, for example, from our perspective, we may not be able to be a banker to everyone because of institutional constraints that you have or the strategy. But however, banking the unbanked, you've seen the digital technologies playing a major role in many of the markets. The mobile phone penetration is, it has reached to the most rural level as well. So mobile money, sort of mobile banking is a critical way of reaching out to the people who don't have access to finance. Like also Tansri was mentioning that traditional banks may not be accessing very small ticket items. However, there are alternative institutions that have emerged to access the unbanked population. So that will be one way. The way we try to support is like on lending. We support the institution that reaches to the grassroots level. Similarly, on the SME or the small and medium enterprise or MSME is almost 70 to 80% of each economy's backbone. So unless and until that segment really comes up, the economy will not revive. So from that perspective, and also learning from the pandemic, I think the best is to conserve some capital, because there would be surprises happening in the future. and try to remain agile instead of investing too much on fixed asset capital to remain liquid, so that in bad period you can conserve and move on. So I think in a short nutshell, that would be my answer. But I would just like to conclude by saying it's a great privilege to be in the same panel with Tansri, whom I respect for many years, seen how AirAsia has moved in an agile way. Of course, Vibha is our great partner as an insurance, and thanks to WIEF for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we're screeching into the final line of today. We do have a message from the former Prime Minister after this, and we're going to be heading over straight to that. But in the last 1 minute or so, I'd like to recap everything that we shared today. First, Tansri started with talking about partnerships, finding the right sort of partnerships, those that will be with you through thick and thin. And then Vibha went straight into the aha moments, everything from working from home, productivity, connectivity, and then the realization of us having to be more purposeful in the way we behave with each other, and using that moments, pockets of focus moments to be able to be more effective as an organization. Also realizing that at the end of the day, that hybrid or that meeting in person is also still very key, especially in deciding key decisions for the organization. Mr. Abrar then jumped over to talk about learning to serve your customers and your stakeholders differently, having that foresight to have business continuity in place, looking at digital adoption as an opportunity, not only as a risk or a challenge, looking at engaging customers in a different way, and of course, focusing on leveling the playing field, where he said access, enablement, and empowerment. And then of course, Tansri buttressed that up even more by talking about, when we're talking about enablement and empowerment, we should really be looking at building communities, not just transactional businesses, but really those that grow with the geography, with the community, with the people. He gave experiences of when he first envisioned the airline. He thought that there is a possibility where we can have a space in time when anyone can fly, and having materialized that, having the foresight to go even bigger to what AirAsia can be for that whole entire industry and more. And then Vibha talked about living your values. When you talk about an organization, it's not good enough to just have nice keywords, but what does this mean when times become hard? She was talking about being nimble, looking at ways to reduce blockers and barriers. And I've got a really nice quote at the end of that to hook on that. Mr. Abrar also then talked about agility in an organization is key. And when we talk about agility, it's not just being fast. It's about also being able to adapt between the digital and the physical, and think beyond transactional patterns, where we can complement potential competitors and grow together rather than perpetually competing with each other. He also spoke about evolution, advancement, and integration. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we round out the session today. I'd like to end with a quote from A. Samad Said that said, "Barangkali tugas manusia ialah untuk menunggah batu-batu halangan dan menjadi pengguna dasar dan landas bagi bangunan yang baru." In which he says, perhaps the task of mankind is to break these barriers and learn from the lessons of the broken, shattered pieces and build a foundation for something new. For that, thank you very much, Tony, Vibha, and Abrar for joining us today. Have a wonderful day ahead. Over to you, MC.
Thank you, Nadiah, role players, and everyone for being here today and making this session successful. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this session. We truly hope that you have gained valuable input and ideas.